The large classroom fell silent as Professor Kilzak entered. His 4 long arms carried different devices, and his skin shimmered with a blue glow that showed his excitement. The students watched as he placed his teaching materials on the desk. Some students looked afraid, others seemed curious. All of them knew that today was important. "Welcome to Advanced Survival Studies," Professor Kilzak said. His translator made his clicks and whistles into words everyone could understand. "I am here from the Galactic Federation University to test your skills." The classroom held 24 students from 12 different species across the galaxy. Near the back sat 6 humans from Earth. They were the newest species to join the Galactic Federation, having been discovered only 30 years ago. Most aliens still saw humans as simple creatures with basic technology. Kim sat quietly, taking notes on his tablet. He had come from South Korea on Earth, chosen for his work in building homes that worked with nature instead of against it. Next, to him sat his 5 human classmates: Han, who knew all about water systems; Lee, who could grow plants anywhere; Park, who understood energy; Choi, who could build or fix anything; and Song, who was an expert in communication systems. Professor Kilzak touched a button on his desk. A 3D map appeared in the middle of the room, showing a planet with red and orange colors. "This is Proxima Centauri b," he said. "A planet with harsh conditions. Your assignment is simple. You will build survival shelters on this planet and live in them for 1 full cycle around its sun, what Earth humans would call a year." Many students nodded. This was the famous final test that all Galactic University students faced. "You may use the standard supply package and add 10 personal items," the professor continued. "Your goal is simple: survive." A tall student with scaled skin raised a clawed hand. "Professor, will we work in groups or alone?" "Excellent question, Zarlak," the professor said. "Survival is an individual challenge. Each student will build their own shelter in their assigned area." Kim looked at his fellow humans. They had discussed this possibility. On Earth, humans rarely survived alone. They built communities. That was humanity's greatest strength. Kim raised his hand. "Yes, Earth student." Professor Kilzak seemed surprised that a human would speak up. "Professor, I request permission for the human students to work together," Kim said in a clear voice. The classroom filled with clicking sounds and quiet whistles, the alien equivalent of laughter. Professor Kilzak's skin changed from blue to yellow, showing his amusement. "You wish to work as a group, 6 humans against one of each other's species?" The professor made a sound like stones rubbing together, his species' version of a chuckle. "How interesting. The university does value diversity of approach. Very well. The 6 humans may work as one team." Kim nodded, ignoring the looks from the alien students. He knew what they were thinking. Humans were weak and needed numbers to compete. But that wasn't why he had asked. The professor touched his desk again, and the map zoomed in on different areas of the planet. Each student or team will be assigned a location. Some are more difficult than others. The map showed beautiful areas with water and plants, areas with caves for natural shelter, and areas rich in materials. Then it showed a barren valley with rocky ground and little visible water. "The human team will take the northern valley," Professor Kilzak announced. His skin flickered between yellow and green, showing both amusement and curiosity. "It has the fewest natural resources and is subject to atmospheric disturbances." Kim looked at his teammates. They didn't seem worried. In fact, Choi was already making notes about the rock formations he could see in the images. "You each have 3 days to prepare," the professor said. "Study your locations, plan your approach, select your personal items wisely." After class, the 6 humans gathered in their shared study room. The walls showed detailed images of their assigned valley. He gave us the worst spot, Han said, studying the water scan results. There's water, but it's deep underground. He wants us to fail, Park added, to prove humans don't belong in the advanced class. Kim shook his head. No, he's curious. Did you see his skin color? He wants to see what we'll do. Lee was looking at soil samples on her tablet. There are native plants that could be modified to grow food. The rock formations will provide good building materials, Choi said, and protection from the storms. Song looked up from her weather analysis. The atmospheric disturbances follow patterns. We can use them for energy if we're smart about it. Kim smiled as he watched his teammates work. This was why he had asked for them to work together. Each saw different possibilities. Together, they saw the whole picture. Professor, Kilzak thinks we asked to work together because we're afraid, Kim said. He doesn't understand human history. We built cities when other species were still building personal shelters. We don't just survive together, we thrive together. The team spent the next 3 days planning. While the alien students focused on high-tech individual solutions, the humans designed something different. On the morning of departure, all students gathered at the transport bay. Each carried a small bag with their personal items. Professor Kilzak inspected each student's preparations. He spent a long time with Zarlak, who had brought advanced shielding technology. He nodded with approval at Vexatria's defensive systems. He seemed impressed by Quilnath's atmospheric converter. When he reached the humans, he looked at their simple tools with confusion. "These are your advanced technologies?" he asked. "Hammers? Shovels? Seeds?" "Yes, Professor," Kim answered. "Plus standard emergency equipment, of course." The professor made a note on his tablet. "Interesting choice. Most species bring their most advanced personal technologies." "We brought our most useful technologies," Kim replied. Professor Kilzak's skin showed blue spots of interest. "Tell me, Human Kim, what do you expect to achieve in this assignment?" Kim thought for a moment before answering. "Most students will build shelters, Professor. We plan to build a home." "The difference being?" the professor asked. "A shelter keeps danger out," Kim said. "A home lets life in." The professor stared at Kim for a long moment, then moved on without comment. But Kim noticed his skin had changed to a deep purple color that wasn't on any of the emotional charts they'd studied. As the transport prepared to take them to the planet's surface, Kim looked at his teammates. They weren't afraid. They were excited. Humans had always faced challenges together. It was what they did best. Professor Kilzak made one final announcement. "Remember, students, this is not just a test of technology. It is a test of intelligence, adaptability, and understanding what survival truly means. Good luck to all. I will conduct my first inspection in 3 months." As the transport doors closed, Kim saw the professor making notes. He wondered what the alien was writing about the humans. Whatever it was, Kim knew one thing for certain. They were about to surprise him. What Professor Kilzak didn't know was that humans had been turning hostile environments into communities for thousands of years. It wasn't just what they did, it was who they were. 3 months passed quickly on Proxima Centauri b. The red sun rose and set in strange patterns that took time to get used to. The days were shorter than on Earth, and the nights were colder. Professor Kilzak's ship landed first at the eastern continent where most of the alien students had set up their shelters. He carried scanning tools and recording devices to document their progress. His blue skin glowed with excitement as he approached the first shelter. Zarlak, the tall student with scaled skin, had built a dome made of metal and special glass. It could stop the harmful rays from the planet's sun. Inside, Zarlak lived alone with computers that controlled everything. "Impressive," Professor Kilzak said, making notes. "Your radiation shields are better than standard galactic technology." Zarlak stood proudly. "I developed them myself. No radiation gets in. I can survive here indefinitely." The professor moved on to the next student. Vexatria had created a shelter with weapons that could shoot down anything that came close. Robots patrolled the area. Inside, she had stores of food and water that would last for years. Excellent defensive thinking, the professor noted. Quilnath's shelter was most impressive of all. It created its own air, cleaner than the planet's natural atmosphere. Machines turned the planet's soil and air into food. Everything was automatic. Outstanding, Professor Kilzak said. You've created a completely self-contained environment. The professor visited 6 more alien students. Each had built remarkable individual shelters using the most advanced technology their species could create. Each lived alone, protected from the harsh planet by walls of metal and fields of energy. Finally, the professor's ship flew to the northern valley. As he approached the human location, he prepared to see 6 separate, simple shelters, perhaps made of stone or the native wood-like plants. He expected to find the humans struggling to survive in the harsh environment he had assigned them. What he saw instead made his forearms freeze in surprise. The humans had not built 6 separate shelters. They had built one connected community. From above, it looked like a flower, with a large center building and 5 smaller structures around it, all connected by covered walkways. The buildings were partially built into the hillside, using the natural rock for protection on one side. The professor landed his ship and stepped out. The air was clean here, not harsh like in other parts of the planet. He heard an unusual sound, water running. Somehow the humans had found water in this dry valley. Kim walked out to meet the professor. He looked healthy and rested. Welcome, Professor Kilzak. Would you like a tour of our home? The professor nodded, too surprised to speak. Kim led him to the central building. Inside, it was warm and bright. The walls were made of local stone, but they were covered with designs and pictures. Some spaces held plants growing under special lights. This is our community center, Kim explained. We eat together here, work together here, and spend time together here. The professor saw that the room had more than just survival equipment. There were comfortable seats, tables for eating, and even some simple games. You used resources for comfort? The professor asked. His skin showed yellow spots of confusion. Yes, Kim said, because comfort helps us work better and stay healthier. The professor followed Kim through a covered walkway to another building. Inside, Han was working with water flowing through. Clear pipes. This is our water center, Kim explained. Han designed it. We found underground water and bring it up here. The system cleans it and sends it to all areas of our community. Han smiled at the professor. We also capture water from the air at night when it's more humid. Nothing is wasted. All used water is cleaned and used again for plants or cooling systems. The next building housed Lee and many plants growing in special containers. Some looked like earth plants, but others were strange colors and shapes. Lee modified local plants to produce nutrients humans need, Kim explained. And she found ways to grow earth seeds in this soil. We now grow about 60% of our food. Professor Kilzak's skin turned deep blue with surprise. 60%? In just 3 months? Lee nodded. Plants want to grow. They just need the right conditions. In the next building, Park showed the professor a complex system of energy collection. Some devices captured heat from the ground. Others collected energy from the wind. Solar panels stored energy from the red sun. We have 3 backup systems, Park explained. If one fails, another takes over. We store extra energy here. He pointed to rows of batteries. The 5th building was Choi's workshop. It held tools and materials. Choi was making a new part for one of the water pipes. Choi can fix anything, Kim said, and she makes new tools when we need them. Many of our original tools have been improved for the conditions here. The final building was Song's Communication Center. Screens showed different parts of their community, the weather patterns, and collected data about the planet. Song keeps us all connected, Kim explained. She also studies the planet and gives us early warning about storms or temperature changes. The professor looked around the entire community again. What the humans had built was more than just survival shelters. It was a working settlement. You spent resources on these walkways, the professor noted. They are not necessary for survival. They keep us dry during acid rain, Kim explained. But they also keep us connected. No one lives alone or works alone. That's important for humans. Back in the central building, the other humans had prepared a meal. They invited the professor to join them. You spend time cooking food together? The professor asked. Isn't that inefficient? It might take more time, Kim agreed. But sharing food builds our community. Strong communities survive better than strong individuals. As they ate, the professor asked many questions. He learned that the humans worked in shifts. While some slept, others watched the systems. They had created routines and even celebrations for successful projects. Your assignment was to build survival shelters, the professor said. Yet you built this. He waved his 4 arms to indicate everything around them. We built what humans need to survive, Kim said simply. And humans need each other as much as they need water or air. Before leaving, Professor Kilzak asked, to see the humans' personal items, the 10 things each student had been allowed to bring. Kim showed him books with knowledge about building with natural materials, special seeds, a musical instrument, tools that could be used in many ways, and pictures of family and homes on Earth. No advanced technology, the professor asked. No weapons? No luxury items? We brought what we needed to build a home, Kim said, not just a shelter. As the professor returned to his ship, he looked back at the human community. Lights glowed in the windows. He could hear voices and even laughter. The alien students in their separate shelters never laughed. In his personal journal that night, Professor Kilzak wrote, the human approach is unlike anything I have seen in my 50 years of teaching. They do not simply exist in their environment. They transform it. They do not just survive alone. They thrive together. I begin to wonder if I have underestimated these newest members of the Galactic Federation. What the professor didn't write but found himself thinking was an even more surprising thought. Which students were truly learning about survival? The aliens with their separate high-tech shelters or the humans with their connected community? 6 months into the assignment, the sky above Proxima Centauri b turned an angry red. The planet's sun released a massive burst of energy, a solar flare much larger than any the students had seen before. The planet's magnetic field could not stop all the harmful rays. In his monitoring station at the Galactic University base, Professor Kilzak watched with growing concern. His screens showed dangerous readings across the planet. Electrical storms appeared in the atmosphere. The temperature dropped quickly as dust from the solar flare blocked the sun's heat. Then came the acid rain, burning and dangerous. This was not part of the planned challenges. This was a real emergency. The professor quickly sent warning messages to all students. Then he prepared his ship for emergency visits. He had to check if his students were safe. His first stop was Zarlak's radiation-proof dome. From outside, the dome looked intact. But inside, Zarlak was working frantically. The solar flare had damaged his main power system. My radiation shields are failing, Zarlak said, his scaled skin pale with fear. My backup power isn't strong enough to run everything. The professor helped Zarlak connect emergency power cells. The dome would survive, but Zarlak would have to shut down many systems and live with minimal power. At Vextria's shelter, the situation was worse. The electromagnetic storms had confused her defensive systems. Her robots had fired at harmless dust clouds, wasting precious energy. Now they stood frozen, unable to move without power. My security system used too much energy, she admitted. Now I can't run my food production units. The professor left her with emergency rations. She would survive, but she would be hungry until the crisis passed. Quilnath's advanced atmospheric shelter had completely failed. The delicate balance of gases could not adjust to the sudden changes. The professor had to evacuate Quilnath to the university base. 3 other alien students also needed rescue when their life support systems failed. The remaining alien students survived but were trapped inside their shelters. They could not go outside because of the acid rain and dangerous electrical storms. Their advanced technology struggled with the extreme conditions. Many systems broke down. Backup systems were not enough. The professor saved the human community for his last visit. He feared what he would find. The humans had used less technology than the alien students. Their community was more exposed to the elements. Surely they would need emergency help or even evacuation. As his ship approached the northern valley, the professor was surprised to see lights still glowing in the human buildings. Smoke rose from a chimney in the central building. There were even 2 humans outside, wearing protective suits as they checked something on the roof. The professor landed and hurried to the community center. Inside, he found not panic or fear, but calm, organized activity. Kim greeted the professor. "We got your warning message, thank you. It gave us time to prepare." The professor's skin showed his surprise. "You are functioning? After such a disaster?" "We had plans for emergencies," Kim explained. "When the solar flare hit, we activated those plans." Kim showed the professor how they had adapted. Their power grid had been damaged, but Park had already switched to their backup wind turbines, which actually worked better in the strong storm. Winds. The acid rain had threatened their above-ground crops, but Lee had already been growing extra food in underground caverns, just in case. "We lost about 20% of our systems," Kim admitted. "But nothing critical. We have backups for our backups." The professor followed Kim through the community. In each building, humans were working calmly, fixing problems and adjusting. Systems! No one was panicking. No one was alone. "How did you know to prepare for such extreme conditions?" the professor asked. "We didn't know exactly what would happen," Kim said. "But on Earth, we have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We built our community to handle things we couldn't predict." In the water center, Han showed how they had collected extra water before the acid rain started. We saw the clouds changing color. We knew something was coming. In the workshop, Choi was already making replacement parts for damaged equipment. "We designed everything to be repaired with materials we have here," she explained. Most impressive was how the humans had organized themselves. They worked in shifts, some resting while others monitored systems. No one had to stay awake too long. No one had to solve problems alone. The alien students with individual shelters have to do everything themselves, Song explained. They get tired, they miss things. We share the work and watch out for each other. That evening, the professor was surprised when the humans gathered in their community center. With a crisis happening outside, they sat together to eat a meal and talk about the day's challenges. They even laughed sometimes. "Why do you gather like this during an emergency?" the professor asked. "Shouldn't you be monitoring your systems constantly?" "We have alarms if anything needs immediate attention," Kim said. "And being together keeps our spirits up. Survival isn't just about systems and buildings. It's about staying strong in our minds, too." The professor noticed something strange. On a table in the center of the room sat small objects made of stone and local plants. They looked like art. "What are these?" he asked. "They serve no survival function," Lee smiled. "They remind us of Earth. Making beautiful things helps us remember why we want to survive." Before the professor left, Kim showed him something remarkable. In a small room off the main center, the humans had created a map of their valley. But it wasn't just showing their current community. It showed plans for expansion, more growing areas, better water collection, even places marked recreation and school. "You're planning to expand during a crisis?" The professor's skin flickered with confusion. "The crisis will pass," Kim said simply, "and we'll still be here. So we plan for tomorrow while we handle today's problems." As the professor returned to his ship, he thought about what he had seen. The alien students, with their advanced individual technology, were struggling to survive. Some had failed completely. Others were just barely holding on. But the humans with their community were doing more than surviving. They were planning for the future. They were making art. They were laughing. Together. In his report that night, Professor Kilzak wrote, "The human community demonstrates remarkable resilience in crisis conditions. While individual shelters face critical failures when single systems break down, the humans' interconnected approach provides multiple layers of protection." He hesitated, then added a personal note. "Perhaps what we have always taught as the highest form of survival, complete self-sufficiency, is not the only path. Perhaps there is something to learn from the human way of facing challenges together." Outside, the storms raged on, but inside the human community, lights continued to glow warmly in the darkness. One full cycle around Proxima Centauri had passed. The time of testing was complete. Professor Kilzak's ship landed at the Galactic University base where all surviving students gathered for final evaluations. Of the original 24 students, only 18 remained on the planet. 6 had been evacuated during the Great Solar Flare Crisis. Among those who stayed, the experiences varied greatly. The alien students looked tired. Many had lost weight. Their eyes showed the strain of long isolation and constant vigilance. Each had faced the challenges alone with only their technology to help them. In contrast, the 6 human students arrived together looking healthy and energetic. They talked and laughed as they entered the evaluation room. Professor Kilzak noticed how they stayed close to each other, moving as one unit even now. The professor stood before the class. His blue skin glowed softly as he addressed them. "You have completed the most challenging survival studies assignment in 50 years, he began. "The unexpected solar flare created conditions beyond our planned tests. Your responses reveal much about survival strategies." The professor displayed charts showing data from each shelter. Survival metrics flashed on the screen: power usage, food production, system failures, and adaptation rates. "Each student will present their final report," the professor announced. "You will share what you built, how you survived, and what you learned." Zarlak went first. He showed images of his radiation-proof dome with its advanced shielding. "My technology protected me from 98% of harmful radiation," he said proudly. "But the power requirements were too high during the crisis. I had to shut down non-essential systems." Vexatria described her defensive systems and how they had protected her from physical threats. "However," she admitted, "my security systems used too much energy too quickly. My food production suffered as a result." Each alien student shared similar stories. Their specialized technologies had worked well for specific problems but struggled with unexpected challenges. Many had survived by shutting down parts of their shelters and living with minimal resources. Finally, it was time for the human presentation. Kim stood up, but he didn't go alone. All 6 humans walked to the front together. "We would like to present as a team," Kim said, "because that's how we survived." The professor nodded. His skin showed blue spots of interest. Kim started a video that showed their community from above. It had grown since the beginning. New buildings had been added. Green areas showed where plants grew. The once barren valley now had paths, garden spaces, and even a small pond. "We didn't build shelters," Kim explained. "We built a community. We called it New Soul." The video showed inside their buildings. Comfortable living spaces, work areas, places where they gathered to eat and talk. "Our approach was different from the start," Kim continued. "We didn't try to fight the environment with technology. We worked with it and adapted to it." Han stepped forward to explain their water systems. We found 3 water sources: deep groundwater, atmospheric collection, and recycling. If one failed, we had others. Lee showed their food production. We grew food in different places: above ground, underground, and in water systems. We also stored extra food for emergencies. Park explained their energy grid. We used geothermal, wind, and solar power. Each worked best at different times. Together, they always gave us enough energy. Choi talked about their repair and building systems. We made things simple so they could be fixed easily. We used local materials whenever possible. Song described their communication and monitoring systems. We stayed connected at all times. We shared information. We made decisions together. Then Kim showed video from during the solar flare crisis. The professor leaned forward with interest. On the screen, the humans were gathered in their central room during the worst of the electromagnetic storms. They were sharing a meal together. Some were monitoring screens showing their systems. Others were resting. They were talking and even laughing sometimes. "This is from the middle of the crisis?" Professor Kilzak asked in disbelief. "Yes," Kim said. "We call this our emergency protocol. While the storm raged outside, we took turns watching our systems, resting and keeping each other's spirits up." "You were celebrating during an emergency?" one alien student asked. "Not celebrating," Kim corrected. "Supporting each other. Humans need physical safety, but we also need emotional safety. Both are necessary for survival." The alien students looked confused. The professor's skin changed to purple, the color of deep thought. "Professor," Kim said, "we'd like to show you something else." The screen changed to show new images, plants growing in new ways, buildings with interesting designs, small objects made from local materials that served no obvious purpose. "What are these?" the professor asked. "Art," Kim said simply. "Music, games, stories, things that make life worth living." The professor's skin now showed colors no one had seen before. Swirls of blue, purple, and a soft green. "You used resources for these non-survival items?" he asked. "Yes," Kim answered, "because survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about living well." The professor was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to address the entire class. "The human team has shown us something important," he said. "For generations, the Galactic Federation has taught that survival means individual strength and advanced technology. We believed the best survivor was the one who needed no one else." He gestured toward the humans. "But these students have demonstrated another approach. They survived not by separating themselves from their environment and each other, but by connecting. Their technologies were simpler, but their systems were stronger because they worked together." The professor touched a button on his desk. The large screen showed the final data. During the solar flare crisis, 25% of individual shelters had failed completely. An additional 50